Hello, everyone. My name is Rob Phillips. I've made several videos about various aspects of what I'm doing with my app, what the process is that I went through trying to create this particular thing. I wanted to speak today about a little something different um, because we live in a world, I believe, where we do not know who we are speaking with. We do not, and I mean, unless we're talking to them, direct, right? So I literally could be a fake, um, a fake bot. I could be a deep fake. I could be something, right? However, in this particular case, I think if they were going to make a deep fake of me, I think they would make me prettier, but that's okay. That's just my opinion. So, the idea that we are bombarded, we are controlled, we are algorithmically manipulated to think certain things, to be a certain way, to be presented with lies, for example, that someone never said, or be presented with, downright vitriol that someone never even said, right? So we could be manipulated into the future in so many ways. And so, how do we solve this problem? I mean, what is the key element? So, I grew up in the before the internet era, right? I was born in the 60s, 64 to be exact. I lived through the beginning of the internet era. I lived in a time where there were no algorithmic abilities. All we had is the media feeding us information, and we typically believed it. We typically believed it because we didn't have information to the contrary, right? And now we live in a world where probably the truth is out there, but also being fed to us in a whole lot of different ways is stuff that's not true. And so we don't really have this ability to understand, what is true and what isn't. Now, I'm not saying I have all the answers for this particular problem, but I think you know, being a Gen Xer slash baby boomer. I mean, I was technically born at the end, very, very end of the baby boomer era, but I consider myself more of a Gen Xer. So I've seen it all. I understand what the world was like before we had algorithmic influences, and I understand what the world is today, where algorithmic influences are almost paramount. They're like the thing that sort of influences our life incredibly strongly. So, what do we do about it? How do we live in a world where reality is fed to us and we can't see it with our own eyes? And again, I'm not suggesting I'm going to solve all of these problems, but what I do think is, particularly when software engineers, when engineers think about problems like this, I mean, how do we solve this problem? How do we prevent the algorithms from being fed to us? How do we do this and how do we do that, right? So oftentimes it comes down to this idea of proving you are a human, you know. But the problem with those solutions, particularly I think of something like WorldCoin or something like that, the problem with those solutions is that they tend to remove any authority from determining, that humanities. They simply provide this mechanism for, suggesting that you're a human because of some physical characteristics that you have, right? And then these characteristics are stored someplace in a database. And then when you want to use that proof of humanity, basically they go and get the data and feed it back to you whenever you want to use this, right? So the problem ultimately with that is that, again, these are algorithms. They are sort of manipulatable. They are, the data is held someplace, and perhaps it's even controlled by someone other than you. In fact, if I were to define what I think the Web 2 world probably is the business model of your data being used, not always against you, but certainly it's used as a business model for big companies to become more and more valuable, richer, more powerful, right? When I think of oligarchies, that's kind of what I perceive as an oligarchy, is using that data, using your activities to basically, feed you stuff, knowing who you are, what you are, where you are at any point in time, knowing what you want to buy, knowing what you're buying, knowing, all your little foibles and all your little things that sort of, you know, define who you are. In some cases, they're very good. In some cases, they're embarrassing and, annoying. So that is the world of Web 2. And that is the world of when you log into an app, for example, like Google. So I always pick on Google, but honestly, Google has provided us a methodology for portability of identity, right? But if you ever look at what gets returned when you log on, or what Google knows about you when you log on, it's all kinds of information, including your address, obviously your name. I mean, just so much information is part of your scope when you log into something like Google, right? So the idea is when we want to prove humanity, I mean, what's the best way to do it? Do you think that if I sat down with you and talked with you for a moment or two, and do you think that's proof of humans? Do you think by this conversation you and I might physically be having that is indicative of being human? I mean, I would argue, yes, of course it is, right? So that is the core sort of methodology of what I am trying to accomplish with this thing called I Am Human, or I am at amihuman.org. So, or I should say amihuman.org, right? So the core methodology is to prove you're human is that you simply talk with another human, and that the person then who in my parlance is a verifier basically says, yes, you're a human, gives you a code, and that code then is used to give you what's called a permission set. So we'll go into that a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen for just a moment here, and I'm going to show you what, first off, what logging in as a human looks like. I'm going to show you what it is supposed to accomplish, what my app is supposed to accomplish here. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And let's see here. Am I human? Share. Okay. So we have this sort of scenario where, I guess, we have this sort of scenario where if you go to mihuman.org, basically the idea, prove your humanity, not your identity. And the problem is with a bot-filled internet, obviously, a better way to verify humanity. It's not algorithmic. We don't need your biometric data. And frankly, I don't care about your politics. I don't care about what you believe to be true and what you do not believe to be true at this point. None of that is going to be documented here. None of that. I don't care about your name even. I mean, if you're not interested in telling me your name when I register you as a human, I don't care. What I care about is this interaction between us. Now, I like to think that we can have a little bit of conversation. So I am what you would call the root verifier, right? So if you think about a tree, an upended tree where the roots are at the top. So I am I have a handle basically called human123, and that is the root verifier. And then what happens is I add humans, I confirm that these people are human. And so the tree gets filled in, below it, the with or above it in the case of this is an upended tree. So it gets filled in with humans, right? And each one of these humans then, because I or other verifiers, me being the root verifier, I verify other verifiers as well. So over time, we build this big human tree of humans that have been given a permission set to actually, interact as a human. So you're given a permission set. I'll show you how that works. So I am going to log in with my root sort of thing. So if you go to amihuman.org, you can see, you'll see a button, test your humanity. And what happens is it comes up, and in this particular case, this login is a handle. It doesn't need an email address at this point. It doesn't need anything from you other than we had a digital, this handle had a digital signature earlier. And then what happens is that digital signature then is basically held in a database someplace. And when you log in, it's just checking the database to make sure that it's all, verifiable and stuff like that. So I'm gonna log in and continue. So here I am. You've been logged in as a human. So again, I'm the root. So, I can verify that I'm absolutely a human, right? But what I've been assigned are these public permission sets. So I talked earlier about scope. So this is the only scope we have of the person. So as you can see, there's no password. I don't even need I don't need really, I need an email only if for the purpose of resetting a password, if the password sort of goes, but the email address can change, and all we have to do is know about it. But it sort of brings this ability to be proven human without anyone knowing more about you, knowing more than the fact of your humanity. And so what happens is you get assigned this permission set, the official perm set that defines human in the Grokism ecosystem, right? So I'm not going to talk about private perm sets for a moment here, but the idea is that I have confirmed that you are a human. Basically, a code then is transferred over, and that code then is used to say, you are human, and then we'll create a bookend. So I'll talk about what a bookend is here in a second. So if you go back and look at some of my other videos, you'll see what a bookend. So this is the end. This is the client part of the whole system, right? So you are human. So you will go through this process of being assigned this same sort of thing. And the combination of the handle and the token you get from logging in and signing the digital signature and so on and so forth as we go through the process here is very secure. I mean, this is what happens when, basically this is the Web 2 practice for a very long time, right? So we have a permission set and we have the token that gets assigned to you from the login process, right? So this is very secure, even though the permission set is going to be for that particular aspect of it, the one that defines you are human. That aspect of it is going to be consistent between everyone that has humanity and that goes through the process of verifying in humanity. And then, the digital signature and the handle. In this case, my handle is human123. So let's talk a little bit about what the private permission sets are. So remember I said I was the root verifier. So I'm going to go ahead and just click on this. And please don't pay attention to the UI elements at this point in time. They're kind of obviously the app doesn't look super good at this point. So as a verifier, I have this right in the app to go ahead and add humans. So basically, I am confirming that you are a human. So I'm going to go ahead and add the human, right? So this is the only place where I sort of need an email address, because what I need you to do is create your handle with the email address. Even though it doesn't get included as part of the scope, it does. It might allow you at some point in time to be able to change your password and stuff like that. But there, you might be associated with 5 or 6 different email addresses, and so this is just one of, all it needs to be is a valid email address. So I have this little checkbox here. Have you physically met with an individual to confirm their humanity? And so this is the question of, it's basically putting a verifier in such a way that the idea is that they physically talk with people, have conversations, be human with each other, whether you agree or disagree, none of that stuff matters. I don't care about your politics, and the verifier, you know, shouldn't care about it either. I mean, all we care about is whether you're human, right? That's it. That's all we care about. I don't want to know your other identity unless, I mean, even if you tell me what it is, as a verifier, if you tell the verifier what it is, if you tell the person you're having a conversation with, or even if they're friends or family or whatever it is, no one will know that additional information because it doesn't get put anywhere. All we're simply doing here is adding you and confirming that you're a human between you and me, between the verifier and the person being confirmed. That's it. So again, I think about scalability here. You're right. I mean, you're thinking, oh, it's not going to be very scalable, right? Well, that's true, right? So because it takes people talking to each other, and then it takes verifiers making verifiers. So I'm going to go back on to the primary website here, mihuman.org, right? And then I'm going to add here, I haven't actually done it, but the idea is that if you want to be a verifier, talk to a verifier, right? So physically talk to them, say, hey, I want to be a verifier so that I can add other humans into the ecosystem. And so over time, we'll build a list of verifiers from hopefully all over the world. I think about this six degrees of separation sort of thing, right? So eventually we'll have people all over the world. We'll have humans, confirmed humans all over the world, and they're confirmed because we talk with each other. And it sort of undermines the ability of AI bots and other things to be able to control our behavior, to be able to, to be able to decide what's right and wrong for us. And the reason it is able to do this is because we build apps. We build apps that require that proof of humanity. We build apps that say, let's bring this perm set down into our applications, and then use the existence of that perm set to execute on things. So in other words, we're essentially proving that that person is a human. And it may not be mathematical in the sense of a zero knowledge proof yet, but let's say you log into an app and the application has, and you have a whole bunch of different perm sets from many different things. So the thing that's going to get downloaded to your app is this thing called a private perm set. And it is, I mean, I can go back and log into this human 1, 2, 3. So I have these things called private perm sets that are associated only with the URL of the app. So in this particular case, um, this is this is the proof of perm set of a verifier. So when I add a verifier and you go through the process of the verifier being created, it basically it automatically generates this permission set for you. And so this permission set then is used to add other humans, right? So being a verifier is an important part of this whole thing. And like I say, over time, we'll have verifiers, we'll have a whole bunch of humans. Like I say, it's an inverted tree. I'm the root. And then over time, we have people joining, verifiers joining, humans joining. And we build this ecosystem of humanity, right? It's building an ecosystem of humanity that sort of doesn't, um, it really doesn't, it doesn't depend on algorithms. It depends on you and me. It depends on talking. It depends on building a system of trust together. Again, no matter who we are, no matter what we believe, no matter if it's Republican or Democrat, or if you're Islamic, or if you're, if you're Christian, it just doesn't matter. What matters is that you're human, and we can all look at each other and say, "Yes, I give you the respect of being a human. I give you the respect of my reasonable behavior towards you, of my even kindness towards you, because of that respect of humanity." So I talked about this idea of what happens when that code is sent. Basically, I'm going to log into this thing called bookends.io. I'm going to create a bookend based on that thing. I'm going to add the perm set, or I'm going to create a perm set. So let's, and that process has basically been confirmed and sort of given in my other videos. But I'm actually going to publish a whole process of how to use the thing, how to use the system, so that we can build a an ecosystem of humans. I know that sounds pretty bad, because before we had this whole concept of the internet, before we had this whole concept of AI and bots and stuff, I mean, we didn't need to speak about an ecosystem of humans. I mean, we talked about ecosystems of forests and things like that. Well, I mean, we have to define an ecosystem of humans now, so that we can interact with it, so that we know we're interacting with humans. And so the process is basically to create a bookend, assign a perm set. In this particular case, we're going to generate a perm set for a verifier. We choose a bookend, and in this particular case, now we're just going to generate the perm set, generate for the verifier. Well, because I've already used it, so I'm sorry. It says the geocoding failed for that particular thing, but that's fine. So the idea then is that that perm set is assigned to a bookend, in this particular case right here. And, it's used to confirm your humanity. So I just want to give I just want to show you what logging into a different app is look like. Again, forgive the UI elements, but I'm going to log in here as mn.decentvote.io. Oh, I spelled it wrong. mn.decentvote.io. Okay. Well, here, let's just go over here. You should see this. And okay, Okay, so basically, and again, forgive the UI elements. I've got to work on that. But so I'm going to log in, and I'm literally going to use the same handle. And the reason, and so this handle is portable. So in other words, it's portable between applications, and that's one of the rules that I've defined for this whole idea of humanity, right? We build applications that that are allow us to be portable, to have this identity that can be used between applications, and to have this perm set that is, portable between applications. So you as an application developer don't need to build the entire sort of authentication system into it. So one of the interesting things about this, if you notice, the private perm set is different because we logged into a different site, mn.decentvote.io. And this perm set here is a coded perm set that when passed down to the app here, it defines me as being in Minnesota House District 64A, Senate District 64, CD, Congressional District 4, right? So this is a voting app that's going to use this information. And again, there is no private information. I should say, I mean, you can define that simply saying that because you're in 64A and it displays it, that is private information, maybe. But I don't know how many people are in Minnesota House District 64A, but there's a lot. So in other words, there's no way for them to tell personally who you are or what you are. The only thing anyone knows is that you're a human and that you have the rights to vote in this particular Minnesota House District 64A, Senate District 64, and Congressional District 4, right? So it's using the same handle, human123, as the am I human one. And I generated, as the root person, I generated the human perm set, but I also generated a separate perm set, private perm set that defines, this congressional information, right? So over time, you build up applications. The public perm sets are, distributed between all the apps because they're public, and the private perm sets are related to the URL that you log into, right? So, and again, as an application developer, you wouldn't have to build all of that stuff into your app so that it works only with your app. We're talking about a generalized portability of your handle and a generalized portability of the fact that you are a human, right? And then the other aspect of this is that, for example, the voting situation is normally the one that's more prominent here because it's such an obvious example, right? So because you're in state Minnesota House 64A, Senate District 64, CD4, right? This perm set then can be used as a methodology to actually do a zero knowledge proof. So you could have a whole bunch of other different private perm sets. You could have perm sets that do many different things, and they could be associated with the one app, sure. I'm essentially, so you have a virtual zero knowledge proof, but then through this process of using Midnight, using a 2-token sort of system, where one token is basically energy to pay for transactions, and the other token is simply held as the public token. And you use this then to register your vote on a decentralized blockchain. In this particular case called Midnight. This is, and I've really just started writing out the smart contracts and everything for how that's going to work. And I hear people talk about, how blockchain is not going to solve any problems. It's bad. It's all kinds of things. Well, here's an example of using blockchain in a way that I think can actually have some very positive effects on society, right? So the point is to not remove the verifier of the data, and then only expose what is necessary to prove that you are what you are, right? So it it's a huge sort of philosophy change from what we've been used to. This difference between Web 2 and Web 3, but we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater when we talk about, what is necessary to actually engage with regulated industries, with voting scenarios, and also with apps, where bots are so ubiquitous as to be able to undermine the whole validity of the app. So that's really it. Um, Being human and this ability for us to define what it is as humans, and then to confirm that through creation of this perm set, and then using that perm set in an application that needs to show humanity. So in other words, through all kinds of different methodology for this particular type of thing, you can actually undermine the 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 bots and undermine the AI, you know, controlling us. This gives us a sort of way for us to do it, that we've never been able to do before. Anyway, thank you. And in the next couple of days, I will post another video, giving some very specific examples of how to do it, what to do. So in retrospect, I think we've gone down a dangerous and, you know, I want to say scary road, and it's true. We I think we've gotten to the point of not listening to each other because we feel that speaking, um, whether we agree or disagree with things, uh, can be a violence in and of itself, right? So it can't be. Um, Speaking between each other, whether you agree or disagree, is necessary for us to learn from each other, for us to be human towards each other, for us to care about each other. We can be different. We can hold different philosophies. We can be, uh, you know, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of, you know, conservative, liberal. It doesn't matter. The point is that we can be different and we can still love each other. We can still engage with each other, and we can be in a civil society with each other, right? Unfortunately, politics has never been about getting what we want. It's about having our say. And so we can all give each other the opportunity to have their say more and more and more with a system like this. In fact, I think it's probably the only way. Think of it like back in the old days where people would go hang out in the pub, and they still do this, hang out in the pub and have conversations. They can be heated conversations. They can be, you know, loving conversations. They can be all kinds of different things. But normally you didn't make enemies from the people you had discussions with at the pub. That's the whole point of a public house, of a pub. And so this is an online pub. We are human. We live in a world where bots can control our behavior. They can control what we see, what we view. AI can be an absolute incredible blessing, but it also has very dangerous sort of side effects that is my purpose, to overcome at least some of those side effects, to overcome the lack of control, the lack of ability to define what is right and what is wrong in our own world. Anyway, I appreciate the opportunity, and take a look at amihuman.org and write me a note at Robert at grokism.com, Robert at grokism.com. And, if you want to be registered as a human, let me know. We'll see what we can do. Anyway, soon I will start scaling this up to as big a thing as I possibly can. Anyway, thanks so much. Bye-bye.